So the topic for discussion today is the page layout and customizing it. Now, customizing the page layout will allow you to do certain things. As you saw that in the page layout, we have different fields listed. So what do we have in the page layout? Let's have a quick look into that. You have the fields listed in the page layout, the fields. After the field, you get to see the related lists in the page layout. These are the related list, right? So these are the things that we can control in the page layout. One is position of the fields. Second is position of related lists. Third is you can make fields required. Fourth is you can make fields read only. Okay, you can remove the fields or related lists from the page layout. So that's what we have. Okay. So these are the things which we can do on the page layout. We can control the position of the fields. We can control the related list position of the related list. Which related list should be at the top, which one should be at the bottom. You can make your fields required. You can make your fields read only. You can remove some of the fields or related list if you don't need them on the page layout. Right. So this is what basically you can do on page layout. Do you do that? So all that you have to do, for example, I want to go and change the page layout for accounts. So all that I have to do is I just have to go to setup and then go to customize, then go to accounts, and under accounts you will find page layouts. So just go ahead and click on page layouts here. Now go and click on edit page layout. Okay. Sometimes you would see that for the same object you have multiple page layouts. As you can see here, there are 4 page layouts for the same object. Can one of you tell me what might be the reason? Why do we have multiple page layouts for the same object? How this can be useful? Anyone? Any ideas? No? Okay, I'll tell you. These multiple page layouts are for different profiles. So when we see that there is the same page layout available for different, for the same object, there are multiple page layouts available for the same object. The concept is that you can allow different profile users to have different page layout for the same object. Like marketing people will see this page layout, sales people will see this page layout, support will see this. So this way you can have different page layouts. You might have this kind of a requirement. The same record your marketing team and sales team wants to view different fields. So you can create different page layouts. Alright. So you just pick any of the page layouts and see how you can edit it. Okay. Now just this is the page layout screen where you actually edit the page layout. If you see all the fields, when you take the cursor on a certain field, you see this icon, which will help you move the fields. Like SIC code, if you want to move it here, it will help you do that. You can hold any field and you can move the field. So as I said, you can control the position of the fields, which all fields where you want the field. Let's say industry is very important field. I just wanted Right after the name of the account, I'll move it here. Okay. If you want annual revenue to be here and number of employees to be here, you can do that. Website you need here. So whatever, moving the fields can be easily done. The same way, if you scroll down a little, you will see that there are all the related lists available here. Contacts, opportunities, okay, the related list, the list of child records per account. If you want to display opportunities on top of a contacts, right now contacts is being displayed at the top. You can drag and drop it here. So it's a complete drag and drop thing. I mean, there is nothing much that you need to learn or understand or do about it. All that you have to do, you just come and make the drag and drop changes. Yeah, that's fine. So opportunities is at the top. Depending on your requirement, you will decide on which related list should appear at the top, right? So what did we discuss? We discussed that we will be able to control the position of the fields and the related list. We have already seen how it can be done. All right. Now, it also allows you to make the fields required and read only. Okay. Sometimes you have the scope of making a field required from here, from the page layout. Making a field required means making it mandatory field, right? So if you have noticed, we have an option of making a field required from the at the time you create the field, right? When you create a field, at that time you have the option of creating a field required, right? And we have an option of making a field required from here also. So you just have to go to the field and you have to click on this properties. Look at it again. Just go to that particular field. At the end, you will see the properties icon. Click on this, and you will have the option of making this field required or read only, whatever you want. Okay. So if you make it required, this will become a mandatory field. If you make it read only, then it will become a read only field, which means the users will not be able to enter any value into it. They will see the field, but they will not be able to enter. If you make it required, then it will become a mandatory field. So, for example, let me do this. So if I try to create a new account, which all fields are required here? Only the account name. Other fields are not required. Only the account name is required, right? Now if you open this page and make website field required from here. Make it required. Click on OK and save the changes. Where will you save the changes? At the top. Top left corner there is an option of save. You want to change. Okay. Now you go to the account, try creating a new account. See, website field has also become required. Got it? Okay. Now, we just saw that we can make a field required from here. I have a small question for you guys. We have an option of making a field required at the time of creating the field. We have that option, correct? When you create a field, at that time also you have an option of marking the field as required. The other option is marking the field required from here, right? Making field required while creating it, and then we have an option of making field required at page layer. Do you think there is any difference in the functionality when you make a field required while you created the field and when you make a field required at the page layout? Do you think there will be any difference in the functionality?
Maybe depending upon the user profile, we are making the that particular field for different profiles, maybe required or not required.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. So, uh, this is a correct point. So, when you make a field required while creating it, it becomes, this is called universally required. When you are making a field required at the time of creating the field, then that field becomes universally required. Universally required means no matter who is entering the information, which profile, which user, it is going to be required for everyone. Alright. Now, if you look into this particular screen, this is a universally required field. This is a universally required field. So whoever enters the value, whichever profile, user, it's required for everyone. This is a field which has been made required on the page layout, which means only the profiles which use this page layout, they will see this field as required. Other people will not see it as required. Got it? We saw that there were like 4 page layouts for different profiles. Now, for out of those 4 page layouts, the people who are using the page layout in which we have made it required, those people will see that this as a required field, others will not see it as a required field. Fine. Okay. There's another functionality which differs. So from the profile perspective, we are clear. There is one more thing. When you are entering information into the system, it's not always through page layout. Do we always enter the data through page layout, or there is some other way also?
Maybe some calculations or something, depending upon the other fields.
Through data loader. Yes. So, through, I mean, data loader can be one. There can be other ways. Let's say through using a program or something. So, we always don't enter the information through a page layout. It can be through a program or code which is written. It can be through a data loader when you are trying to uh, do a bulk upload. These methods are not using page layout, right? So any field required, any field that you have marked as required on a certain page layout, any such field which has been marked as on the page layout, which has been marked as required on the page layout, that field will not be required when the operation is happening through some other means. Get it? Let's say data loader, because data loader is not using the page layout. So while you are entering the data from data loader, website will not be required because this field has been made required only on this page layout. So only when the data is entering through page layout, then this is required. When you're trying to upload a backend, data from data loader, it's not going to be required. When you are entering data, your data is getting into the system through a program or something, then this is not going to be required. Clear? So two major things. One, when you make a field required on the page layout, it becomes required only for the people who are using that page layout. Secondly, this field which has been made required on the page layout, is not usually required when the data is getting entered through some other means, like a backend upload, data loader, program. Yeah, makes sense? Simple thing. Sometimes you would be required to deal with this. It's a very common interview question also, and otherwise also you need to understand. See, so whenever you have that requirement of making a field required or mandatory, you have to decide whether you need to make it a universally required or you just need that field to be required on certain occasions. If it has to be a universally required field, then straight away go ahead with the universally required option, make the field required on the field itself while creating the field. If you want it for some particular occasions, then consider using the page layout required option. Okay. Okay. Now, so we have seen how we can make fields required and read only on page layout. That's also something which we have done. Now come to remove fields and related lists from the page layout. So page layout also allows you to remove some of the fields. Let's say I don't need the sticker symbol and SIC code on my page. Okay, I want this information to be in the database, but the user does not want to see it. You can have hundreds of fields, but every user does not want to see all the fields, right? So let's say I don't want to see ticker symbol, so you can just go and click on this remove button. Remove. So the field has been removed from the page layout. It's not deleting the field, it's just removing the display of that field, right? So now field, these fields are not visible on the page layout anymore. Okay. If you want to bring the field back, you can just go to the fields here. At the top, you will see that the here is that field ticker symbol. No, here it is. This is what we removed. Here it is. You can just drag and bring it here. So if you want a field which is not already there, you can drag and bring it here. If you want to remove it, you can remove it from here. Whatever you want to do. Right? Clear? Let me know if anyone has any question or doubt here in the page layout part. The next concept that we are going to discuss is a record type. What's a record type? Record type is also a very interesting concept basically. So before we start understanding record types in Salesforce and we start directly talking about what a record type in Salesforce is. Let me try to give you some sort of background on that and you understand the functional requirement of a record type first. So think of a situation where you have different types of record which need to be stored, but the information which is being stored in them is pretty similar. If that confuses, let me try to give you a small example. Okay. Take an example of a real estate consultancy firm. Real estate agent, right? Now, a real estate consultant needs to deal with buyers and sellers. Real estate consultant will have buyers as well as sellers, right? Now, so these are basically buyers and sellers are the customers for the real estate. Now he will need to store information about buyers and sellers in his database, right? So if I'm let's say helping a real estate consultant form his CRM, You need to store buyers and sellers information. Correct. Now what happens here is both of them are in a way customers only. So ideally both of them can go into one object. But the problem is that the information which needs to be stored for a buyer versus the information that needs to be stored for a seller are different. Some part of information is same, some is different. So let's open an Excel spreadsheet and look into what kind of a data structure we are going to have. For a buyer, what all information they need to store? Name, email, phone, address, let's say. Okay. Then reference, budget, um, reference, budget, um, buying, okay, this kind of information. For example, for a seller, what all information you need to track? These fields are going to be common: name, email, phone, address. Okay, and then description of his property, what exactly he is going to sell. Okay, so location, dimensions of property, price quoted, or things like this. Okay, so I'm not actually going to get into the details, but we understand that for a buyer, the information which needs to be stored is different from what needs to be done for a seller, right? But ultimately, both of them are like accounts to me. Buyer is also an account, seller is also an account, right? So if you try to store these two things in two different objects, you will end up, making your system more complicated. Buyer and seller ultimately are accounts. So if you have to track cases and if you have to track opportunities, then if you make these two different objects called buyers and sellers, then for tracking cases and opportunities, you will again have a difficult time. Because for seller, you have to track separate opportunities. For buyers, you will have to track separate opportunities and cases. So that ways, right? So easiest thing is to create two different objects here, but creating two different objects is not a very good solution because ultimately it's not going to be helpful. So ideally, if we can put the information into one single object, that will be good. Because whether it's a buyer or dealer, buyer or a seller, for me it's an account. For me it's an lead, right? Now, if I put both of them into the same object, the problem is that these fields are different. For buyer, I have these fields. For seller, I have these fields. Information that is to be stored is different. So then, what do I do? It's very very simple. You just create two different record types. Try and understand this. Create two different record types. Call it customer. Okay. You just need to create an object called customer. This can be a account object also. I'm just assuming that account object is not there. Create an object called customer. Okay, in this object, create all the fields, including the fields of buyer as well as sellers. Okay, now all that you have to do is you have to create two different record types. One record type will be buyer, one record type will be seller. For the buyer record type, create a page layout. You can give it a name like buyer page layout. For seller record type, create a page layout. You can call it a seller page layout. On the buyer page layout, display the fields which are relevant to the buyer. On the seller page layout, display only the fields which are relevant to the seller. Got that? So if you go back to the requirement which we were talking about, so I want you to understand the concept. It's simple use of page layout, nothing more. So these page layouts can be displayed on the buyer's page layout, and these page can be displayed on a seller's page layout. So this is all you have to do. This is all you have to do. The fields which are not relevant to a seller can be hidden on this page layout. The fields which are not relevant to the buyer can be hidden on the page layout of the buyer. That's it. Okay. You got the do you get the concept? Now let's do the same thing here. Let's do it for account. So on the same, just give me 1 minute. Right. So let's create the record types for buyers and sellers in the account. It can be anything, right? So wherever you feel that you have that requirement of different type of data being stored in the same object, just need to go to setup, customize accounts. Under accounts, you have the record types. Click on new. Okay, I will go with the same example, buyers and sellers. Okay, which all profiles will have this record type enabled? So I have currently enabled it for all profiles, but you will have the choice. If you don't allow some of the profiles to see this record type, you can do that. Next, click on save. Which page layout? Okay. Yeah, as I said that you can create separate page layouts for buyer and seller. So if you want, you can create two different page layouts. Currently, I'm just putting it the same layout, but you can create a separate page layout for buyers and separate for the sellers, and you can assign those page layouts to the buyer and seller record types. I'll create one more. Now I already have a record type called buyer in the account. I'll create one more called seller. This is active. This is enabled for all. Go to next. Putting the same page layout for this one as well. Yep. Okay. So we are done. So now we have two record types. Now if someone goes to create an account, if you try creating a new account, you will be asked what kind of an account you want to create. You want to create a buyer account or seller account. When you select a buyer and click on continue, it will take you to the page layout for which has been designed for buyers. So the fields which are required for buyers, buyer account, those fields should be kept here, others should be removed. Got it? So if I have two different page layouts created and only the relevant fields are kept on the page layouts, then the moment you select buyer or seller, you only get to see the fields which are required for buyer. The same way, when you select seller and continue, The fields that you get to see will be the ones which are relevant to the seller. Got it? Makes sense. For example, for buyer, let's say you don't, for buyer, let's say you don't need the annual revenue, you don't need the industry. Okay. And for seller, you don't need number of employees and website. So that thing can be controlled on the page layouts for the record type. Okay. You can go to setup, customize, accounts, fields. Then click on new, sorry, fields. We will go into the page layouts part. Okay. So now if you want, you can create two page layouts here for buyer and seller. And from this one, buyer page, save. Okay. So this is the buyer page. Whatever fields you want here or you don't want to display some fields, should select that here. Same way you can create one for seller also. Okay. And go to record types and go to page layout assignment. So once you have the record types created and you go to the page layout assignment, you will see this kind of a matrix where you will see all the profiles listed here, and then we have the different record types here. For which profile, for which record type, what page layout you want. That's what we are doing there. So for buyer record type, we want to change it to the buyer page layout, right? Currently account layout is the one which has been selected. So you select all of them and change it to buyer page. So for the record type buyer, I've changed the page layout. And the same way for sellers, we will change the page layout to seller page. Okay. So this is the scenario when you need the same page layout for all the profiles. In case you need different page layout, let's say for different profiles, you will need a different page layout for buyer, for different profile, you need a different page layout for seller. That's also doable. In that case, you'll have to create more page layouts, but let's not get into that level of complexity right now. If you just understand, that for a certain record type also you can assign a page layout, that should be fine for you to understand at this point of time. Clear? Now let me know if we have any questions or doubts here.